Okay, let's just jump right in. There are some figures in history, in any field, that are just polarizing.
Oh, absolutely.
But then you get a figure so divisive, so electrically charged, that even just saying his name at a dinner party is like, well, it's like touching a live wire.
It really is. And we're talking about a story that if you wrote it as a screenplay, a studio executive would just kick it back.
I'd say it's unbelievable.
They'd say, this is too much. It's too on the nose. You have this ultimate hero's journey, a man rising from a literal deathbed, just ravaged by cancer.
And not just surviving.
No, not just surviving, conquering the single hardest sporting event on the planet.
7 times.
7 times in a row. And then you have the third act where that entire golden narrative just, it collapses.
It evaporates.
Into one of the most sophisticated, calculated frauds in the history of sports.
We are, of course, doing a deep dive today into the life, the lies, and the legacy of Lance Armstrong.
Yeah, legacy is the right word because it's so complicated.
It is. And I think for a lot of us, our memory of this whole saga is a bit like a photo album.
Yeah.
You have the snapshot of the yellow Livestrong wristband.
Everyone had one.
Everyone had one. You have the snapshot of him in the yellow jersey on the Champs-Élysées, arms in the air.
The iconic image.
And then you have that other snapshot, him sitting across from Oprah in that blue suit.
The confession.
But the connecting tissue between those photos, the actual mechanics of how this all happened, I think for a lot of people that gets a little blurry over time.
Right, and that is exactly where we need to focus today because the headline, Lance Armstrong cheated, is frankly boring at this point.
We all know that. That's not news.
Everyone knows that. The mission for this deep dive is to move past the headlines. We want to understand the machinery behind it all. We've pulled together biographies, court documents, the massive USADA investigation reports.
Which are incredible to read.
Oh, they're more gripping than most thriller novels. And we've looked at financial records, too.
So we want to answer the how. How did the cancer actually shape the cyclist he became?
Physically and mentally.
And how did the doping program actually work? I mean, specifically, where did the bags of blood go? How did they do it?
The logistics of it are mind-boggling.
And then, how did he survive the fall? How did he go from global pariah to the person he is today?
It's a story about biology. It's about corporate structure. It's about legal battles.
And it's about a personality type.
Oh, it's fundamentally about a personality type that was just driven to dominate every single variable in his universe, no matter what the cost was.
It really is the ultimate Icarus story. But imagine if Icarus had a team of doctors, lawyers, and a state-of-the-art carbon fiber bike.
And a very, very good PR team.
A very good PR team. So let's start at the very beginning, because I think there's this misconception that Lance Armstrong just came out of the womb on a road bike in France, sipping an espresso.
Right, like he's a Belgian farm boy.
Exactly. But that is not his origin story at all.
Not even close. And this is a really, really crucial piece of context that often gets overlooked when people analyze his later career.
Okay.
Lance Armstrong didn't grow up in the traditional European cycling mold, which is all about heritage and, finesse and climbing mountains since you were 12 years old.
It's a culture.
It's a whole culture. He grew up in the suburbs of Dallas, Texas, and his athletic roots weren't in pure cycling at all. They were in triathlon.
Which is a totally different animal. I mean, we all know it involves a bike, but culturally and physically, it's just a different world.
Completely different. If road cycling is, chess on wheels or maybe ballet.
Yeah, the tactical game.
Then triathlon, especially in the late 80s, was a bar fight. It's just brutal. You're swimming, biking, and running all back to back.
Nonstop.
It requires a different kind of engine. It is about brute force, high, steady output, and an incredible tolerance for pain. You aren't drafting behind people and waiting for a tactical moment.
No, you're just redlining the engine for hours on end.
For hours. And he wasn't just, participating in this sport. He was a prodigy.
That's the word you always hear. Prodigy. And prodigy is the right word. We're talking about a teenager here.
Yeah.
In the 1987-1988 season, he's competing in the 19 and under group.
Okay.
He was ranked the #1 triathlete in the entire country.
As a teenager.
But get this. I found this stat and it's fascinating. His point total as an amateur in 1987 was actually higher than 5 of the professionals who were ranked above him.
Wait. Say that again? So as a high school kid, he was already putting up numbers that were better than some of the pros.
Yes. Arguably, he was already performing at an elite professional level while still an amateur.
Yeah.
He turned pro at 16.
16.
He was the national sprint course champion at 18 and then again at 19. And this all matters because of the body type it builds.
Right.
Triathlon builds a big upper body for the swim. You get broad shoulders, a big chest, big lat muscles. It builds dense, powerful leg muscles for the run.
So not a climber's body. It does not build the waif-like, skinny climber body that usually wins the Tour de France. He was built like a tank.
So when he eventually made that transition to pure cycling, signing with the Motorola team in 1992, he was basically a linebacker showing up to a jockey convention.
He was a bulldog. That's
Yeah.
the perfect way to put it. He brought that triathlete aggression with him. He wasn't interested in the unwritten rules of the peloton or waiting his turn. He just wanted to get on the front and smash the pedals until everyone else fell off.
And he had success early on, didn't he? I mean, this is important. Before the cancer, before the real controversy, he was already a world champion.
He was. And it's so important to remember that. He was a world-class athlete before the drugs and before the cancer.
This wasn't a case of some nobody who used drugs to get good.
Not at all. In 1993, he won the World Road Race Championship in Oslo, Norway. It was pouring rain, just miserable conditions. He was 21 years old.
21.
And he also won a stage of the Tour de France that same year, so the raw talent was undeniable. But, and this is the big but,
There's always a but.
he was built for one-day classics, hard, fast, explosive races. He was not a Grand Tour contender.
He couldn't get over the big mountains for 3 weeks straight.
He could get over them, but not fast enough to win. He was too heavy. Physics is physics. Dragging that swimmer's upper body up the Alps for 3 weeks is a massive disadvantage.
Right. And then comes 1996, the year that just changes the entire trajectory of his life and really the sport of cycling.
October 2, 1996. He's 25 years old. He goes to a urologist in Austin, Texas, because he's having symptoms that he just can't ignore anymore.
And these weren't subtle symptoms.
Not at all. We're talking headaches, blurred vision, a swollen testicle, and this is the one that really signals how bad it was.
The blood.
He was coughing up blood.
Coughing up blood. I mean, that sounds incredibly advanced. That's not, oh, I found a lump. That's systemic.
It was. It was stage 3 testicular cancer, an aggressive form called embryonal carcinoma. And the terrifying part wasn't just the cancer itself, it was the metastasis.
Where it had gone.
It wasn't local, it had spread everywhere, to his lymph nodes, his abdomen, his lungs.
And his brain.
And his brain.
The brain lesions.
Yeah.
That's the part that always gets me. That feels like a death sentence.
It very, very nearly was. He had 2 lesions on his brain that required immediate surgery. And when they went in, they found extensive necrosis, which is just dead tissue inside the tumors.
So they were growing fast.
Incredibly fast. And his urologist, a guy named Dr. Jim Reeves, he later admitted in interviews that while they told Lance he had a 20 to 50% chance of survival.
Basically a coin flip.
Right. They told him that to keep his hopes up, to keep him in the fight. But he said the medical reality, based on the x-rays and the blood tests, is that there was almost no hope.
Almost no hope. To go from that phrase to winning the Tour de France less than 3 years later, it really does sound superhuman. It sounds like a comic book origin story.
It does, but this is where we need to get into the medical weeds a little bit, because there was a specific pivotal decision made during his treatment that might have been the key to his entire future career.
Okay, this is fascinating.
This is a real aha moment in his medical story. So the standard protocol for treating this kind of advanced testicular cancer is a chemotherapy cocktail called BEP.
BEP.
Right. It stands for bleomycin, etoposide, and cisplatin.
And this is the cocktail you give to save the patient's life. This is the gold standard.
Yes, it is very effective at killing the cancer. And Armstrong did 1 cycle of that. But then his medical team at Indiana University, led by Dr. Lawrence Einhorn and Dr. Craig Nichols, who are pioneers in this field, they made a massive pivot.
They changed the plan.
They changed the plan midstream. For the remaining 3 cycles of chemo, they switched him to a different protocol called VIP. They swapped out the bleomycin for vinblastine.
Why? Why the switch? If bleomycin is the standard and it works, why change it?
Because bleomycin has a known nasty side effect, pulmonary toxicity.
It hurts the lungs.
It scars the lungs. It causes fibrosis. For you or me, maybe that means we get a little winded climbing 3 flights of stairs. For an elite endurance athlete whose entire career depends on lung capacity,
It's career-ending.
it destroys your engine. It caps your VO2 max forever. You're done.
So his doctors were actually thinking, okay, we need to save his life, but we also want to try and save his lungs just in case he makes it.
It's unbelievable foresight. And the alternative drug, efosfamide, which is the I in the VIP cocktail, is actually much harsher on the body in the short term.
So it made him sicker.
Yes. It causes more nausea, More vomiting, a higher risk of kidney damage, but it spares the lungs. They basically decided to make him sicker in the moment to preserve his potential future as an athlete.
That is wild. I mean, that single decision preserved the engine that would go on to power 7 victories.
It did. And the treatment itself had another, I guess you could call it an unintended consequence.
What's that?
The chemo just ravaged his body. It stripped him down to the bone. He lost all his hair, obviously, but he also lost all that muscle bulk he had carried from his triathlon days.
So you're saying the cancer treatment essentially sculpted him into a climber?
In a grim, roundabout way, yes. He emerged from the cancer ward significantly leaner. He had the same big heart, the same lung capacity, thanks to them avoiding the bleomycin, but he was now dragging significantly less weight up the hill.
His power-to-weight ratio.
It went through the roof. It's the holy grail of cycling mathematics, and his was suddenly off the charts.
So he survives. He's declared cancer-free in February 1997. But his career is basically in tatters, right? I mean, who in their right mind wants to sign a guy who just had brain surgery and months of brutal chemo?
Nobody. Absolutely nobody. His existing team, a French team called Cofidis, they dropped him. The negotiations just fell apart. He was seen as damaged goods.
A liability.
A huge liability. The general consensus in the cycling world was, it's a miracle he's alive, but he's never going to be a top-tier pro again, ever.
And that's when the U.S. Postal Service team stepped in.
The team that would become completely synonymous with his name.
And I assume they didn't pay him much.
They signed him, but it was for a bargain basement price. We're talking about $200,000 a year.
Which, for a former world champion, is nothing.
It's peanuts. It was a prove-it deal. A low-risk, high-reward gamble for the team.
It's just amazing to think of Lance Armstrong, the multimillionaire brand, riding for $200,000. So he comes back in 1998. And this is where the transformation becomes visible to everyone. He's not the same rider.
No. Physically and mentally, he's a different person. In 1998, he raced the Vuelta a España, the Tour of Spain.
A 3-week race. A grand tour.
Right, it's a grand tour, just like the Tour de France. It's a huge test of endurance and recovery. And he finished fourth.
Fourth, after all that.
Fourth place. And that was the proof of concept.
That was the warning shot to the rest of the world.
It proved he could now contend in a 3-week race. He wasn't just a one-day racer anymore. He could recover day after day in the high mountains. And that result sets the stage for the streak, 1999 to 2005.
The era of dominance, or as some people might call it, the dark era. Let's talk about that dominance. 1999, he wins his first tour. And he didn't just squeak it out, he crushed the competition.
Oh, he beat the second-place rider, Alex Zülle, by over 7 minutes. That is a lifetime in professional cycling. It's a demolition.
Now, there's a caveat there, isn't there? Some of the big names weren't in the race that year.
That's true, and it's an important piece of context. 2 of his biggest potential rivals, Jan Ullrich and Marco Pantani, weren't there. Ullrich was out with an injury, and Pantani was dealing with his own doping scandals.
Right.
But you can only beat who shows up. And Armstrong won 4 stages, including the time trials and the mountain stages. He showed he could do everything.
And this kicked off that famous rivalry with Jan Ullrich. I feel like every great sports story needs a great rival. Ullrich was the runner-up so many times, 2000, 2001, 2003.
Ullrich was the perfect foil for Armstrong. He was the natural talent. The German powerhouse, they called him Der Kaiser.
But a bit lazy, right?
A bit more relaxed. He was famous for gaining weight in the winter, training more on feel. Armstrong was the calculator. He was the robot. He lived and breathed the sport 365 days a year.
And their rivalry gave us these cinematic moments that defined that era. Do you remember the look in 2001?
Oh, absolutely. Alpe d'Huez. It's one of the most iconic moments in cycling history. You got to explain what happened there for people who might not have seen it, because it is pure theater.
Okay, so they're on Alpe d'Huez, maybe the most famous, most difficult climb in the entire tour. The crowds are insane.
Millions of people on the roadside.
And Armstrong is acting like he's suffering. He's grimacing. His mouth is open. He's hanging at the back of the lead group. He's putting on a show.
He's bluffing. He's playing poker on a bicycle at 10,000 feet. And Jan Ullrich's team, they see this and they think, he's cracking. This is our moment. Let's go.
So they take the bait.
Hook, line, and sinker. They go to the front and they just drive the pace, burning up all their energy trying to drop him.
And then what happens?
Then, at the perfect moment, Armstrong just drops the hammer. He accelerates like he was shot out of a cannon, and as he passes Ullrich, he turns his head and just stares right at him.
Not a glance.
A stare. For a solid second or two, it was pure psychological warfare. It was a message. And then he just rode away to win the stage. Ullrich was broken.
It was pure intimidation. I was faking. I am stronger than you, and now I want you to know it.
Exactly.
And then there was 2003, which I think was the closest race of the 7, right?
Yes, 2003 was a nail-biter. He only won by 1 minute and 1 second in the end, but that year gave us one of the most insane bike handling moments in the history of sports.
The Joseba Boloki crash.
His field ride.
This is my favorite clip to watch on YouTube. It's just unbelievable.
It's terrifying to watch even now. They are descending a mountain pass on a scorching hot day. The asphalt is literally melting in the sun, getting sticky.
Not ideal for bike racing.
Not at all. And Joseba Boloki, who is in second place overall, he hits a patch of soft tar, his back wheel locks up, and he high sides. It's a violent, brutal crash.
He broke his femur.
Broke his femur, his elbow, and his wrist. Career-altering injury.
And Armstrong is right behind him.
Inches behind him. He has absolutely nowhere to go. If he brakes hard, he's going down too. If he swerves left, he plows right into Boloki. So he swerves right
Straight off the road.
straight off the road and into a dry, bumpy, grassy field.
On a bike with tires as thin as your thumb.
A multi-$1,000 carbon fiber road bike. He's bouncing around like he's on a mountain bike. He cuts the switchback, rides down this hill.
And just pops back out onto the road.
There's a ditch at the bottom. He unclips one foot, hops the bike over the ditch, and rejoins the road on the tarmac below just as the main group is passing by. He didn't lose any time.
It looked like a stunt from an action movie.
It did. And, it brings us back to his triathlon roots, that kind of chaotic bike handling skill. That came from years of varied riding, dealing with messy transition zones.
A pure road cyclist might have just panicked.
Might have panicked and laid the bike down. Armstrong turned a potential disaster into a highlight reel that furthered his legend of invincibility.
And then, still in that same 2003 tour, we had the crash on Luzardiden. This is the one where a spectator's bag took him down.
Yes. He's on the attack on the final climb of a critical stage. A spectator is leaning over the barrier, waving a yellow musette bag, little feed bag.
A souvenir.
And the strap catches Armstrong's handlebars. He goes down hard, hits the pavement. Another rider, Iban Mayo, goes down with him.
At that point, most people would be rattled. Your race could be over.
His rivals even waited for him, which is a sign of sportsmanship in the peloton, but he gets back up, adrenaline kicks in, he gets back on the bike, chases back on, stabilizes himself.
And then attacks again.
And attacks again, even harder this time, and wins the stage. It just reinforced this narrative that nothing could stop him. Not cancer, not crashes, not rivals, not equipment failure. He would always win. It felt like destiny.
He also changed the game in terms of how teams operated. It wasn't just him riding. It was this thing they called the F1 model. What was that all about?
This was revolutionary for cycling. Before Armstrong, cycling teams were a bit disjointed. You had a bike sponsor, a tire sponsor, a clothing sponsor, and they didn't really talk to each other.
They were just suppliers.
Exactly. Armstrong and his team director, Johan Brynjol, they looked at Formula One racing and said, we need to do that. They demanded vertical integration from their sponsors.
So the bike frame is designed specifically to work with the wheels, which are designed to work with the tires and so on.
Precisely. They brought all the sponsors, Trek, Nike, AMD, Oakley, Giro, into the same room. They wind tunnel tested everything together. They worked on integrated aerodynamics, on weight savings, on nutrition.
They left nothing to chance.
They had a level of logistical and technological support that just left other teams playing catch-up for years. They professionalized the sport in a way it hadn't been before.
And the results speak for themselves. In 2005, which was his final win of the streak, he set the record for the fastest tour in history.
An average speed of 41.7 kilometers per hour.
That's nearly 26 miles per hour, average, for 3 weeks over the Alps and the Pyrenees. That is just a mind-boggling speed.
It is. And, naturally, when you see performance that seems to defy physics like that, it raises questions.
Of course.
Which brings us to the shadow that was always there, lurking just behind the podium girls and the yellow jerseys.
The doping allegations. Now, looking back with the benefit of hindsight, it feels so obvious. We all know the end of the story.
Right.
But at the time, his defense was incredibly strong, and his denial was ferocious. He would always say, I am the most tested athlete in the world.
I have never tested positive. That was the mantra. And technically, for a very long time, that was true, or at least he was never sanctioned for a positive test. But the whispers, they started early.
Let's talk about 1999, his very first win. There was a French rider named Christophe Basson.
Christophe Basson is a really tragic figure in the story, and a real hero in hindsight. He rode for the Festina team. Now, you have to remember, Festina had been busted for a massive team-wide doping scandal the year before, in 1998.
The Festina affair.
Yeah.
It almost killed the tour.
The whole team was thrown out. Bassans was widely known in the peloton as the only clean rider on that team.
So they called him Mr. Clean.
Right. And he was writing a column for a French newspaper during the 99 tour saying essentially, hey, doping is still happening, the speeds are still unnaturally high, and we need to talk about it.
Lance Armstrong did not like that.
Not at all. There was a moment during a stage where the peloton was riding slowly. Armstrong rode up next to Bassans, put his hand on his shoulder, and told him it was a mistake to speak out.
In the middle of the race.
In the middle of the race, he basically said, you are bad for the sport, why don't you go home? He was intimidating him.
The guy in the yellow jersey bullying the whistleblower in front of everyone?
Exactly. And later on, French TV, Armstrong confirmed it. He said Bassans' accusations weren't good for cycling and that he should leave the sport. And the pressure worked. The rest of the peloton ostracized Bassans.
He was shunned.
He eventually quit the tour in tears and retired from the sport not long after. It was an early public demonstration of how Armstrong enforced the omerta, the code of silence.
But it wasn't just bullying. There were specific, almost spy-like mechanics to how they were doing this. We've heard about the Moto Man. This sounds like something out of a Jean Le Carré novel.
The Moto Man is wild. His name was Philippe. He was, I believe, a gardener or a handyman who they hired to be a courier.
An untraceable guy.
Exactly. He would follow the Tour de France on a motorcycle. He wasn't part of the official team staff, so he wasn't staying in the team hotels and wasn't subject to the same scrutiny from police or doping control.
And what was he carrying on this motorcycle?
He was carrying thermoses, but not with coffee. They were filled with vials of EPO or erythropoietin and sometimes blood bags for transfusions.
Just driving around France with illegal drugs.
He would zip through the mountain roads, park his bike away from the cameras, and smuggle the supplies to the team doctors. It was a literal drug delivery service on two wheels.
And then you have the book L.A. Confidential, which was published in 2004 by two journalists, David Walsh and Pierre Ballester. This book was explosive at the time.
It was huge, especially in Europe. And it featured testimony from Emma O'Reilly, who was the team's soigneur.
A soigneur is what, exactly?
A masseuse.
A bit of everything. They do massages, they prepare food, wash clothes, run errands. They are deep in the inner circle. They see and hear everything.
And her story about the saddle sore cream is the classic example of the cover-up, right?
It is the smoking gun of administrative cheating. In 1999, during his first win, Armstrong actually did test positive for a corticosteroid. It showed up in his urine.
Okay.
To cover it up, the team panicked. They got a compliant doctor to write a backdated prescription for a skin cream for saddle fours that happened to contain cortisone. So they basically said, oh, oops, he had a skin rash and we treated with this cream, when in reality he was probably injecting it for performance.
Precisely. And Emma O'Reilly knew it was a lie because she was the one giving him massages every day. She knew he didn't have any saddle sores.
And she testified to other things too, right?
She did. She testified that she was asked to dispose of used syringes for the team and that she even used makeup concealer to cover up needle marks on Armstrong's arm so the press wouldn't see them at the finish line.
And what did Lance do when she spoke out with these truths?
He destroyed her. He called her an alcoholic. He called her a prostitute in the press. He sued the publications that printed her story. He went to absolute war to ruin her credibility and her life.
That is the part that, for me, makes it so hard to see him as just a competitor who got caught. The personal destruction of people who dared to tell the truth.
It was absolutely ruthless. And at the center of the medical side of this whole operation was one man, Dr. Michele Ferrari.
The controversial Italian doctor.
Sure.
The doping doctor.
Ferrari is a key character. He was the mastermind. He was a brilliant exercise physiologist, but he viewed the human body as an engine that just needed the right chemical tuning.
He had a famous quote about EPO, right?
Yes, he was known for saying things like, EPO is not dangerous, it's the abuse that is dangerous, and then he compared it to orange juice. He said if you drink 10 liters of orange juice, it can kill you.
Which is just a stunningly cynical argument. And Armstrong paid him a lot of money.
A lot. Evidence later showed Armstrong paid Ferrari over $1 million between 1996 and 2006.
$1 million for training advice.
That was the official line. Armstrong publicly claimed he severed ties with Ferrari in 2004 because Ferrari was under criminal investigation in Italy, but the USADA report showed they kept meeting secretly as late as 2010.
And Ferrari was the one who figured out how to beat the tests.
He was the one who perfected the system. He figured out the glow time, how long the drugs stayed detectable in the system, and he pioneered the use of microdosing to stay under the testing thresholds.
But science eventually starts to catch up, doesn't it? In 2005, there was that huge report from the French newspaper L'Equipe.
This was a major crack in the armor. A French anti-doping lab had kept frozen urine samples from the 1999 tour for research purposes.
Okay, so not for legal evidence, just for science.
Right. And in 2005, they decided to retest them with new, more advanced methods for detecting EPO that didn't exist back in '99.
And what did they find?
They found 6 samples from 1999 that tested positive for EPO, and those 6 samples belonged to Lance Armstrong.
So game over. Right. That's definitive proof.
You would think. But this is where the legal and political maneuvering comes in. The UCI, which is the international governing body for cycling, appointed a Dutch lawyer named Emil Vrijmen to investigate the leak and the findings.
And the Vrijmen report cleared Armstrong.
It did?
How is that possible? The samples are positive.
They cleared him on technicalities. They didn't say the tests were wrong. They argued there was improper handling and a lack of a proper chain of custody. Since the samples were for research, they hadn't been guarded like legal evidence.
So they created plausible deniability.
They argued you couldn't prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that no one had tampered with them. It was a defense lawyer's dream, and it worked. He stayed officially clean, and the story went away for a while.
It worked for a while. So he retires in 2005, on top of the world. 7 wins. Leaves the sport as a global icon. If he had just stayed on the couch drinking beer and playing golf, we might not be having this conversation.
I think that is very, very likely true. If he stays retired, the omerta probably holds, the whispers remain whispers, but he just couldn't stay away.
That ego, that competitive drive.
Yeah.
In 2009, he announces a comeback. He wants to win an 8th tour. He joins the Astana team.
And this is where the unraveling really begins in earnest, because the sport had changed a bit, the testing was better, and the internal dynamics on his new team were toxic.
He wasn't the king anymore.
No, he had Alberto Contador, the young Spanish phenom, on his own team. They hated each other. It was a constant power struggle. Armstrong finished 3rd in the 2009 tour, which is honestly incredible for a 37-year-old.
But he didn't win.
He didn't win, and the real threat to him wasn't Contador. It was a ghost from his past, a former teammate, Floyd Landis.
Floyd Landis is the catalyst for the entire collapse.
Absolutely. So Landis had won the Tour in 2006, the year after Lance retired, but then he was stripped of his title for doping. He spent years denying it, raising money from fans for his legal defense, the Floyd Fairness Fund. He wrote a book claiming he was innocent.
But by 2010, the jig was up for him.
He was broke, he was disgraced, and he had nothing left to lose. He tried to get a spot in the Tour of California, and the organizers, who were close to Armstrong, snubbed him. That was the final straw. He decided to burn the entire house down.
So he sent the emails?
He went nuclear. He started sending these long, detailed emails to cycling officials, sponsors, anti-doping agencies, detailing everything.
Not just rumors.
Yeah.
Specifics.
Systematic doping on the U.S. Postal Service team. Blood transfusions in hotel rooms, how to use EPO, testosterone patches. He named names. He explained the mechanics of the whole program.
And crucially, he didn't just send emails. He filed a lawsuit.
A federal whistleblower lawsuit under the False Claims Act. And this is a very specific, very powerful piece of American legislation.
Explain how that works.
It allows a private citizen to sue on behalf of the government if they have knowledge that someone is defrauding the government.
And the fraud in this case was against the U.S. Postal Service.
Exactly. The U.S. Postal Service is a government agency. They paid over $30 million to sponsor the team. The sponsorship contract had strict anti-doping clauses. Landis argued that by doping, Armstrong and the team management had defrauded the U.S. government out of its sponsorship money. This brought the full weight of the feds into the picture.
And then came the USADA investigation in 2012. This wasn't just he said, she said anymore. This was a mountain of evidence.
It was overwhelming. The U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, led by its CEO, Travis Tygart, compiled what they called a reasoned decision. It was a massive 1,000-page document. It included financial payments, emails, scientific data from blood samples.
And sworn testimony from his former teammates.
That was the dagger. George Hincapie, Levi Leifheimer, Christian van de Velde, Tyler Hamilton, these were his lieutenants. These were the guys who protected him in the peloton for years.
So why did they flip?
USADA basically gave them a choice. Tell the truth under oath, and you'll get a reduced 6-month ban. Lie to us, and we will ban you from the sport for life. They all talked.
The code of silence was finally broken.
Shattered.
The quote from that USADA report is seared into my brain. They called the U.S. Postal Team's operation the most sophisticated, professionalized, and successful doping program that sport has ever seen.
It was the death knell. Armstrong tried to fight it in the court of public opinion. He wrapped himself in the cancer flag. He attacked Tigart, calling it a witch hunt. But legally, he had no cards left to play. He chose not to contest the charges in arbitration.
He tried to frame it as, I'm just tired of fighting this.
Yeah, right. I'm moving on with my life. But by not fighting, he legally accepted the sanctions, and the penalty was absolute, total.
He was stripped of all competitive results from August 1998 onward.
All 7 tour titles. Gone. Wiped from the record books.
And banned from all Olympic sports for life.
Real life.
And the UCI, the Cycling Federation, they made a really interesting decision about those 7 titles. They didn't just give them to the guys who finished second.
They couldn't. It would have been a farce. If you look at the podiums from those years, Jan Ullrich, Joseba Beloki, Ivan Basso, almost all of them were implicated in their own doping scandals at some point.
So the whole era was dirty.
The era was so dirty that if you gave the title to the second place guy, you're very likely just giving it to another doper. So they made the unprecedented decision to leave the years 1999 to 2005 as a black hole in the record books. No winner.
So if you go online and look at the official history of the Tour de France, it just skips from 1998 to 2006.
Effectively, yes. A 7-year void where the yellow jersey officially didn't exist.
That brings us to January 2013, the confession. He sits down with Oprah Winfrey. I remember watching this live. It was absolutely surreal.
It was a global cultural event, and he admitted it. He had admitted to using EPO, testosterone, cortisone, and blood transfusions. He admitted to being a bully. He just answered yes to her rapid-fire questions about the drugs.
But, and this is classic Lance,
Yeah.
It was a very limited confession.
It was very calculated. He drew a very specific line in the sand. He admitted to doping through 2005, his last win, but he vehemently denied doping during his comeback in 2009 and 2010.
Even though USADA said they had blood evidence from that period suggesting he was.
Correct. USADA had what they called blood profile data from his comeback that showed fluctuations highly consistent with blood manipulation, but Lance drew that line.
Why?
Perhaps it was ego. He wanted to believe he got that third-place finish at age 37 clean. Or more likely it was a legal strategy, because the statute of limitations for fraud might have been different for the more recent years.
And let's talk about the cost of that confession, because it was incredibly expensive.
Astronomically expensive. In a single day after the USADA report dropped, he reportedly lost $75 million in future sponsorship income.
$75 million.
Nike, Trek, Anheuser-Busch, Oakley, Giro, they all dropped him in the space of about 24 hours.
And he had to pay people back, too.
Yeah.
That SCA Promotions case is just incredible.
This one makes my blood boil a little bit, even now. SCA Promotions was an insurance company in Texas that underwrote the bonuses for him winning the tour.
So they paid him millions for his wins.
Right. But in 2005, they tried to withhold the $5 million bonus for his 7th win because of all the doping rumors. And Armstrong sued them.
So he sued them for accusing him of being a doper while he was in fact doping.
Yes. And in that original arbitration, he testified under oath that he was clean. He bullied them legally. And he won because there wasn't definitive proof yet. They were forced to pay him a total of $7.5 million.
So when he confessed to Oprah,
SCA came back with a vengeance. They said, you committed perjury, you lied under oath, give us our money back plus damages. And the arbitration panel agreed with them.
how much did he have to pay?
They ordered him to pay back $10 million. And the panel wrote in its decision that his previous testimony was the most devious, sustained deception ever perpetrated in world sporting history.
Devious, sustained deception. That is a heavy, heavy phrase. And then he still had to settle the Landis government lawsuit, right?
That one dragged on until 2018. The government was seeking up to $100 million in damages. They eventually settled for $5 million. Honestly, Armstrong got off relatively lightly there, considering the potential damages.
And we can't forget the symbolic costs they took his Olympic medal.
The bronze medal from the 2000 Sydney Olympics time trial, he had to physically mail it back to the International Olympic Committee.
That must have hurt.
He also lost his Legion of Honor award in France. He lost the keys to various cities. He was erased from the honor rolls of every single organization that had celebrated him.
And he was kicked out of Livestrong.
That, I think, was probably the most personal cut of all. He founded the Lance Armstrong Foundation back in 1997. It became Livestrong.
Yellow bracelets.
They sold millions and millions of those yellow wristbands. They raised over $325 million for cancer support programs. It was a genuine force for good.
It helped a lot of people.
But his name, his brand, became so toxic that he had to resign from the board to save the charity itself. He was completely separated from his own creation.
So he's banned, he's sued, he's stripped of his titles, he's lost his charity. You would think at this point he would just disappear to a cave somewhere, but he didn't. And this is where the story takes a final, weird financial twist.
This is the twist that proves that truth is stranger than fiction. Financially, by all accounts, he should have been ruined. But he made one investment, almost by accident, that saved him.
Let me guess. It's a tech startup.
It's a tech startup. In 2009, during his comeback, he invested $100,000 into a venture capital firm. It was called Lowercase Capital, run by a guy named Chris Sacca.
He didn't even know what he was investing in, right?
And Lance admits he didn't even really know what the companies were. He just liked Sacca and trusted him.
And what did that fund happen to buy an early stake in?
They bought an early stake in a little ride-sharing startup called Uber.
Uber, of course.
Yes, that $100,000 investment. When Uber went public years later, it was reportedly worth an estimated $20 to $30 million.
That is absolutely unbelievable. He loses $75 million in sponsorships, pays out millions in settlements, and then makes a huge chunk of it back on an app for taxi service.
In an interview he did with CNBC, Armstrong frankly admitted, "It saved our family. Without that one accidental home run, he might have been bankrupt."
And he hasn't stayed silent in the media either. He has his own podcast now, The Move,
which is very popular. He breaks down the Tour de France stages every year with his old teammate, George Hincapie.
which is deeply ironic considering he's banned from all sanctioned cycling events.
He can't be at the race officially, but he can sit in a studio and talk about it, and people listen. He still has that incredible analytical mind for the sport. He understands the tactics better than almost anyone.
But his attitude about the past, that's what still riles people up.
It is. He was asked by the BBC in a 2015 interview if he would do it all again. And his answer was very telling.
What did he say?
This is the key insight into his psyche, I think. He said, "If I was racing in 2015, no, I wouldn't do it again because I don't think you have to. But if you take me back to 1995 when doping was completely pervasive, I would probably do it again."
I would probably do it again.
He views it contextually. In his mind, he didn't cheat the competition because the competition was also cheating. He sees it as a necessary evil of that specific, dirty era.
He doesn't see himself as a predator who victimized clean riders.
He sees himself as a shark who just happened to be the best shark in a tank full of sharks.
So putting this all together, it's such a complicated picture. We have the cancer survivor who gave genuine hope to millions of people.
An undeniable force for good in that realm.
We have the bully who ruthlessly destroyed the lives and reputations of people who told the truth.
A truly dark side to his personality.
We have the cheater who orchestrated this massive deception. And now we have the podcaster and media personality who made a fortune on Uber. How do we synthesize all of that?
It's complex. You can't erase the hope he gave cancer patients. I know people personally who got through chemo holding onto that yellow wristband in his story. That inspiration was real, even if the premise behind the athletic feats was a complete lie.
But you can't ignore the damage.
You also can't ignore the profound damage he did to the integrity of sport and to the individuals, like Christophe Besson and Emma O'Reilly, who he crushed along the way to protect his lie.
It's the ultimate contradiction, living in one person.
It is. And it leaves us with that black hole in the record books. If you look at the Tour de France winners list, 1998 is Marco Pantani, 2006 is Oscar Pereiro, and in between, nothing.
Just a gap, a 7-year void.
But we all saw it happen. We saw the attacks on Alpe d'Huez. We saw him ride through that field. The memory exists, but the official record does not. And it really raises this provocative question for you to think about. Does erasing the name from a book really erase the dominance from our memory, or does it just leave us with a ghost story?
A ghost story about the true cost of winning at all costs.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, we are going to wrap up this deep dive. It is a story that I think we will be analyzing for decades to come.
Absolutely. It's not going away.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We will catch you on the next one.